certainly we are back. Most certainly back in the saddle again. I'm back in the saddle again. Kind of a little Steven Tyler mixed with Metallica there. Yeah. Joe is in the house. What up? Yes. We are back. It is Thirsty Thursday. There may or may not be a silo of Twisted Tea sitting right off to my left. But it was a busy day. Hey, Joe, want to let you know, CoopervilleClothing.com, we just added a rugged camo hat. It's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. So check that out. We added a bunch of new stuff. Not a bunch of new stuff, but we finally figured out how to get the white lettering onto a black t-shirt. Big day. So the Lean Into the Weirdness is now available. Black shirt, white print. Got the finger on, the mic on the sleeve. It says Cooperville on the back. Weird. I think we're still live. I don't know. Tough to say. A little glitchy on the Twitchy, I see. Glitchy on the Twitchy. Sucking up the internet. Close that. Close that. Go back here. Do the things. How we looking, Joe? How we looking on the Twitch? Looking good? Are we bueno? Because that's really all that matters. That we look good for those who are watching. Clearly, we have not yet finished our construction in the back. Been one of those things. C-Dub says, oh no. Oh no. Yeah, I don't know. It was glitchy on the Twitchy. YouTube is glitching out. All right. Well, let's try to fix that. Yeah, like it was like a big weird flash across the screen. And do this. Close that down. We'll try to save some of that upload speed. There we go. We'll see. We'll see if that helps. If it doesn't, what are you going to do? All are shitty. Well, that's good. That's good to know. Let's try doing this. And just too many screens. I always tell my kid, like, easy on the screen time. Here I am in front of like 6 of them. What I meant to say was, pull it up on the tube here. Pull it up on the tube and see what we got. But yes, I got the new clothes out today, new clothing line. So make sure you check that out. It's Fef, I'm adding you to the tag. So Fef, I'm adding you to the tag. So I'm checking my Facebook while doing the live stream. It's a real smooth machine. I sound like a leprechaun. That's awesome. I've always wanted to sound like a leprechaun. All right, we're gonna move some things over here. We're gonna slide this over here, and we're gonna bring this up and close that down. Shut down. There. Do I still sound like a leprechaun? I mean, it's kind of been a life goal, so I'm not too upset by the whole thing. Yeah, I'm not I'm not morbidly upset about sounding like a leprechaun. I think all of our settings are right here. Should be, at least. I don't have any voice filters on currently. Sometimes you play around with the voice filters and it gets a little iffy. Let's go here. See where we're at. Yeah, Facebook looks okay. We'll check the Twitchy. We're glitchy on the Twitch. Eating all the stuff, man. I can see you in the green room. I'm like to check out Cooperville those new additions today. Joe, we got your hat up. Let me turn that off. See if that helps. Schizophrenic April May stuff. When you have a couple nice days in a row, get out. I know that, especially after we had a year like we've all experienced, where like going outside was the only thing, and we're like, I don't care what the weather's like. I'm just gonna go outside because there's nothing else to do. But now that there's some other things you can do, add a little sunshine and 70 degrees in there, and life good.
Yeah, you don't have to just say you went outside, to say it to look like a tough guy. You can actually, enjoy it out there.
I braved the elements today.
Yeah,
but you got a lot of irons in the fire. But I want to take you back. Obviously, we've known each other for many years. As I used to work in a place that was right behind the place that you used to work when you were doing TV stuff, and I was doing radio stuff. We're now both no longer doing either one of those things, which I've come to consider a blessing in my life, because I can do stupid shit all I want, and nobody tells me the otherwise. But
means we can see our families once in a while.
That is true. Like, there's no phone calls coming in at late hours, and like, oh, hey, we got to go cover this thing, or hey, you're off the air, or hey, this how does this button work? Like, no, I don't get those calls anymore, and I'm sure you appreciate not getting those phone calls or being at the studio late too.
Totally. Yep, absolutely. I never, a day doesn't go by when I don't think, about how grateful I am to kind of be on normal people's schedules for a change. And, it's gratitude's a big thing right now, because of the situation we're all in. But, it gets better every day, right?
I think so. I think when you have that sense of gratitude on a daily basis, and if you ever don't, and you can reflect back on moments where you're like, oh yeah, that was not a fun situation to be a part of, or dealing through different circumstances, or being called in, or someone was sick and you had to go fill in, you're like, I'm kind of just rowing the boat.
Yeah.
And it feels good to be in control of rolling your own boat.
Absolutely. Good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems.
Yeah. I love that. That's good. We should put that on a T-shirt. I know a guy.
Remember that song?
Make that happen. I do. Joe DeGuano says, Radio people are not normal, Joe DeGuano. Thanks for jumping in the comments. I still have a bit of the abnormalness to me, so maybe that's the thing. But you've branched out as well, doing is it a podcast and you're doing live and doing video with it, or is it like a smorgasbord of bowling with the Feff? Tell me all about it.
That's a great question, because a lot of people refer to it as a podcast, which is fine. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a podcast in its form right now. I stream exclusively to YouTube. Okay. So so I don't have your occasional problems of, let's see how it is on the Twitch and how it is on Facebook and all that. I'm kind of a YouTube guy for the moment. I've had multiple people ask me, hey, shouldn't this just be a podcast, because, people drive and they can listen to it in the car, and YouTube is a little clunky once in a while if you don't make it like appointment, viewing. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, maybe that's in the future, but we'll see. But for now, it's just a video live stream. It is about people telling their unique stories about bowling, which is something I did long before I had an interest in TV. Mm-hmm. It's been fun. It's been definitely a labor of love, something I enjoy doing, which you kind of have to enjoy doing live streaming, because it takes time to build up a following or even a community. And, it's just been really enjoyable. Caught up with some old friends, made some new ones, and talked about the sport that I love the most.
I think there's such an importance to what you just said about really enjoying what you're doing, and talking to the people that you want to talk to about things that you're passionate about, that you really enjoy, because this live streaming thing, even adding in the podcasting element, which is really another layer on top of it. And to sidebar on that a little bit, like the concept of a podcast is completely screwed up right now, because everybody watches Joe Rogan. They're like, well, yeah, just like do that. I'm like, Do you know how much money that man has made?
What is that exactly? How do I tap into that?
Yeah, let me just have my guy and my team go ahead and work on that for you. We'll have some DSLR cameras in here. We'll get the lighting right. But others, so people kind of associate, somebody talking to another person, and they see video, they're like, oh, well, this must be a podcast. I know I made that assumption as well, because the podcast platform kind of came before, besides Rogan, before the whole or video element to it. But I think the technology, and you've obviously embraced these cool new ways you can reach out to people. You don't have to be in a centralized hub where there's, oh, well, so and so is going to be in town, so I can have them take some time out and come to the studio for an interview. You can set it up at your own leisure. They can jump on. It's usually browser based or Zoom based, so you can really make some cool connections that way. But the part about it being a passion project is, if you don't have a passion for it, it usually lasts about an episode and a half.
Yep.
Because you go, like, I don't. If I'm dealing with a technical issue, if I'm dealing with like the person's late, or doesn't show up, or there's my feed looks good and they're all blurry, or their feed looks really good and I'm all blurry, and I'm like, oh man, I look like I'm a schmuck over here. But you really have to have a want to do it. And the fact that you're talking about something that you have a super high passion level for, that you were involved with before you even got into TV, I mean, that's got to be like, this is like a hobby on steroids. Not that we should talk about steroids and bowling, because I'm sure there's probably major steroid controversy in bowling, but you got to feel good about being able to just like shoot the shit with people about something that you're both really interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Bowling is something I always wanted to talk about when I was in news, and rarely had the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of refreshing to be able to say, okay, this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to stick with it. But you know what? If it doesn't blow up, if it doesn't make me any money, it's okay. Because the purpose of this is, A, to tell stories and, have maybe a few people learn something new, enjoy other people's stories. But B, something that my guest last night brought up is that their story is now on YouTube, and the internet's in ink. So they'll be able to go back to it weeks, months, years later, and maybe they forgot about that tournament where they did really well, or that time when they overcame some adversity to come back and prove doubters wrong. That stuff is there, and they'll be able to look back on it with pride, and maybe show family and friends, and be proud of their bowling stories.
I think that's another cool aspect to it, is you do have all these people from different skill levels, walks of life, and obviously have all traveled different paths to do what they love to do. But there's always that cool thing, and I even get this from people that I have on, that they're like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you just want to hear my story, hear why I do what I do, or why I'm into what I'm into. And sometimes we get off on other tangents that I'll try to not steer you on to today. We'll try to keep it on that center line. We'll try not to go over the line. Don't cross the line. We won't cross the line. A bowling reference there. I had it all planned out. But
it was great.
Yeah, it's not even a scripted show. We're just off the cuff around here.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, and people love the fact. And I am at a point now. I mean, we've been doing, the podcast started right after I got out of radio. So I got out of radio in February of 2019, and we started the podcast like the next week. And then it morphed really over COVID into doing it, as a video feature, and then adding it to live stream feature, and then became a daily show, like 3 months ago. And I've went down the rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago, and I was scrolling through my YouTube, because I forgot before we started doing video, we would feed the audio to YouTube. And I'm just I forgot I have just countless thousands of hours of content that are out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot this was there. And I, started to kind of repost some of those things and tag some of my guests in there. They're like, oh my gosh, I forgot that we talked about this, or I was on a tour bus and we happened to be here. So the fact that they live in the internet verse forever, for not just for your sake, but also for your guest's sake, and they can be like, hey, this is really cool. And they love to share that kind of stuff. When they have a moment in the spotlight, a moment in the sun, They love to be like, hey, I was on this show and it was super cool, and we talked about things that I'm interested in. So it's got to be a cool outlet, not just for you, but for your guests as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And when you start something like this, like you said, some people, they do an episode and think, not for me, or just not going to work. But when I started it, I tried to kind of focus group this thing. Okay, what do you think? Did anybody watch it? Is this something that you could see yourself either tuning in for? And it doesn't have to be, right at the time that I'm doing it live, because it lives on YouTube. So, is this something that, somebody else besides me is interested in? I believe the answer is yes. I think it's, it grows the more and more we do it. Every episode I ask somebody to challenge another potential guest, and, then we get somebody from another circle or maybe another community. It's just kind of, it's just this thing that a lot of people have in common. Some people think it's a niche thing. Other people think bowling is kind of woven into the fabric of, of who we are, or who we were, unfortunately. But it's all about fun. And, I've kind of varied how I conduct these interviews. Some of them are a little more pressing questions, maybe with a professional bowler, than an amateur, and, there's a little tension and release, and, hopefully the folks who come on enjoy telling their stories as much as I love kind of prying it out of them.
Yeah. And I don't, my ear isn't 100% to the ground on the bowling community. But it seems like this is an opportune area to have a guy like you whose knowledge has a, huge knowledge base, understands the sport, plays the sport, has a history in the sport, probably, follows the sport as well. But to have, like, you're kind of interjecting your way into, this circle of things where you could become the guy. That's the guy you talk to. You know what I'm saying? Like, as you issue these challenges out, and, it's player A to player B to player C, and all of a sudden you're kind of the guy in the circle of trust, if you will, that people can come to. And I just seeing this as not necessarily a niche thing for the fact that it's bowling, but niche in the fact that you could be the guy that does the live stream bowling stuff.
Sure.
I'm being a visionary for you here.
Hey, circle of trust sounds much better than pyramid scheme. so we'll stick with that.
While you're here, I would like to know if you would like a subscription to Captain. Just kidding. There's no pyramid, because it's like, just please buy my things, people. Just please. I'm trying to finish this wall in the back, which apparently, look at this guy.
See?
Hey,
I came with props.
He is prepared. He's got that stuff. Thank you. I appreciate the support.
Of course.
That helps pay for the lumber that put this wall together. As you can see, it's not quite
lumber
done.
ain't cheap these days.
No, I had to sell my child just to get the last stud.
Oh no!
I'm kidding. He's still around. No, it's but no, I just can see that as and really an inspiration for people that have that have a passion for a particular thing, to really expand, and obviously it grows into something that could be monetarily beneficial, and obviously an advancement. And hey, you could be the guy that goes on the road and does these kind of interviews. I'm just spitballing ideas out here, but you can inspire somebody else to say, hey, maybe it's not bowling necessarily, but I really like talking to guys that go out and do these fishing tournaments around here. It's like year round. On the ice, on the open water, on the shore bank, off a bridge. People just fish all the time from random places. But it's a very cool, I think, way to be like, as you're paving your path into kind of the bowling world of doing live streams, like somebody else coming up saying, oh yeah, I could see myself doing something similar in something that I'm passionate about, because it's always easier to talk about things that what you're talking about
intimately. And let's not get it twisted here. There's a lot of other people who do bowling live streams, but I think that each one is a little bit different.
Right.
I've seen ones involving the pros that do their own live streams. I've seen ones that are bowling ball companies that are doing live streams but also want to sell you a product.
Right.
I've seen ones with fans who are more kind of opinion-based than guest-based. And then I try and kind of, snuggle up in this cozy area where I've got, the guests lined up, and hopefully as this goes on, that gets easier to do.
Yeah.
But
and it doesn't. it does not. It does not get easier. You're like, hey, because for them, and maybe it's just because of the last year and how the last year has been kind of nobody's really on a schedule. Like it's easy to talk to for me, I have band guys on, and I have other people on who are usually out doing things. Right. So when they're like, yeah, I'll do that on Tuesday, and then they're like, they think it's Wednesday, and so it's been a little challenging, but I do think that does, once I will air quote normalcy, once things get back to some sense of we can go out and be back to, for bowlers, be back to doing big tournaments and things like that, and the bowling alleys are open more often, I think that will just by happenstance become easier for you to do, and also that challenging. I think that's a great idea. Like, hey, next time you're at an outing or tournament, tell the next guy, like, hey, I was on with the Fef. You got to be on with the Fef.
Yeah,
I like it.
Absolutely, and that that's it's kind of a team concept that keeps this thing rolling. Of course, it's totally self-serving because I want to keep it rolling.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I haven't come across somebody who's at least told me after the fact, oh, that was lousy, or right. Oh, I didn't enjoy myself in that. It's usually quite the opposite, which is exactly what I'm going for. I mean, this certainly isn't gotcha journalism. This isn't even capital J journalism. This is just, this is just talking bowling.
Yeah. And I want to talk about bowling. You mentioned being intertwined into the fabric of America, Americana, and it truly is. I mean, people don't, there's obviously people that get to a level, and that's like the upper echelon, the professionals, the people that, you see on ESPN during the big tournaments and the Worlds and stuff like that. But like it is such a thing. Like I don't know anybody who doesn't have a childhood story about remembering going to the bowling alley. I mean, if you're from around here, like I kind of grew up in this area before I left and came back. Like I remember like Wagner's 66.5 lanes, being like this place we would go, and it evolved from that into like we went there for bowling and then a party, and then obviously the arcade factor gets brought in. My kid, we brought bowling before. We just took him a couple weeks ago for his birthday over to Falls Bowl, and he raked us for like $80 in some video game, trying to the quarter machine that you try to push the quarters out, and it pushes out like prizes. Put a quarter in, and it pushes the quarters out. Yeah, that was a much more expensive bowling trip than I thought. But it is so. Everybody has a bowling story, and everybody has. Okay, I want to talk about good form, but everybody has like, even if you have like the granny roll thing, like a form, and you can be theoretically competitive, and so everybody has like, oh yeah, let's like bowling is just like a natural thing to, hey, we're looking for something to do on a XYZ night. Oh well, let's go bowling, and and let's take the kids bowling, or hey, our first date was bowling. It is one of those things that I think when you say it's intertwined into the fabric of society, it really is. So when did it start for you? Like when did you like remember your first bowling story? Because obviously your first bowling story led into like a trajectory of bowling passion more so than others.
Totally. If you can believe it, I started in 1984.
Vintage year.
Yeah, vintage year. I was 7 years old. In religious school, they said, we're going to do this bowling thing once a month. And this place has, wait for it, automatic scoring.
Whoa. In 84.
And my 7-year-old brain is like, what? I don't have to add up numbers with a grease pen on this plastic sheet and get it wrong half the time. It'll score it for me. Sign me up.
Right.
So I went with it. And automatic scoring in 1984 was this weird thing on like carbon paper with this like modified typewriter looking thing that somehow, projected up onto a screen. Right. But it got the job done. And that's kind of where it started for me. And I enjoyed it enough that I wanted to do it more than just once a month. And I got into junior leagues. And
of your same interests that have your like, and you can connect with people when you're a part of a group like that, in junior league, or if you're going sport to sport in baseball, you're like, hey, I'm the new kid, I'm gonna join the baseball team. There's a real cool thing that sport brings into people. I moved a lot when I was a kid, but I always had sports as this introduction to groups of friends and to people with the same, obviously, interests in mind. And for those who don't have that, I mean, you can go into a place. I mean, Milwaukee to Minneapolis is a big move in both big cities, so it's kind of hard to be like, okay, I'm going to go make some friends now. We're just going to walk outside and wave. I mean, you can do that stuff in Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls, but doing it a little bit different, a little bit different in even the suburbs of major metropolitan areas. But really cool how it's kind of always been a part of who you are and something that you still have interest in, and I'm sure have passed along some of those that interest to the youngster.
Absolutely. You know, he's a little hot and cold on it. Sometimes he likes it, sometimes he doesn't, but that's fine. You know, if that's something he wants to do and finds the same enjoyment as I did back then, great, let's do it. And if not, hey, find something that you like and you know, and we'll push just as hard.
No, I had the same thing with my son. We took him, I remember, to like second, third grade football camp, which is just kids running around and eating grass and doing cartwheels and learning how to throw a football, which is similar to a cartwheel on grass. And he was just like he went, I think he really went because like a couple of his buddies were like, yeah, we're gonna do the football thing, and he was just, I could tell that he was like, this isn't my jam. I'm like, but you don't have to do this. Like, you don't, like, you know, there's no pressure. I mean, Dad played football, but it's cool. Like, you know, I went to Menominee. We were a pretty big deal back in the day. You know. But I mean, you get the dad thing. You're like, yeah, it's okay. Like you find your path, and if it circles back around at some point in your life, and you're like, hey, this thing that I maybe didn't have interest in, or I kind of, you know, like you said, get hot and cold on. Like I'm kind of hot on it now. Can you show me the ways, Obi-Wan? You know what I'm saying? Like, give me. Yes, young Padawan.
And I say, well, I can show
you. Stored in it, yet it's the Paw Patrol theme and the Bubble Guppies theme and Caillou theme and the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme. I'm like, I probably could have done much more in life, but I know how to. Every once in a while, I'm like, Paw Patrol. Like, oh my gosh.
I can hum out the theme to these Among Us and Fortnite songs nobody else, just because they're on constant loop in this house.
Yeah, you know how it is. Stuff. There was some sort of fly running around my face. I was snapping at you. When do you do your show, Faf?
Yeah,
how often do you do your show?
I do it once a week,
cool.
And it's never really, you know, is it the same day? Sometimes, but it's only by coincidence.
Right.
You know, like we talked about, booking guests is not easy, and this is a new thing. So, you know, I'll say, okay, guest A, we've got you booked out until whatever, June, July. What weeknight is it going to work for you?
Yeah.
And let's try and work around that.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you know, like, you know, the live thing, yeah, it attracts some attention, but it's really on the playback. Team replay is what's powering, you know, this whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do it. A lot of them have been on Mondays and Wednesdays, and like I said, kind of a coincidental thing, but I've done it on, you know, many different days of the week, usually at 6 p.m. A couple have been at 7 p.m., and then one of them was at 6 in the morning. But that's because the guest was a professional who was in England at the time. So to, you know, kind of make the time convenient for her, you know, more so than me, I said, let's do it at 6, you know, at 6 o'clock. She's like, 6 in the morning? Is that going to be okay for you? Yep. Let's just get it done.
Make it work.
Is anybody going to watch? Well, yeah, people are going to watch, I hope.
I think.
And it turned out to be my most viewed episode of this thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, timing on stuff is weird. Like, you know, I when I originally kicked off the live thing, daily live, it was like, you know, I wasn't doing much during the day, so it was like 3 to 5, and so I'd viewers then, and then I'm like, well, maybe there's a different time period. You know, I did a different job doing other stuff, and I was like, moved it to 5, and it's any time of day, like, people are out, people are engaged, especially when you have, you know, for you, I think you have an area of people that you're looking for, that you're like, oh, well, this thing is on, I'm going to watch it, whether it's at 6 a.m. or it's at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. But yeah, there's people are on the internet, especially during the last year, at all hours of the day. Like, I have a buddy who's a gamer, and he games on Twitch. he doesn't even get started until like 9 o'clock at night. Like his notification comes up like, Fade Game Officials live. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bed.
Yep.
But he's got, he's got a whole bunch of people that follow him and talk, and he'll play till the wee hours of the morning. I'm like, that's not my jam, dude. But there's always, I think the viewership is always there. And like you said, the team replay thing, that's where I think you really get that content, those views, and you get people to watch and you can repost. I know you do a great job of, selling after the fact, what you've done. I think the idea of having that group that you can post as an event on Facebook, that's genius. To have like that almost it creates that appointment listening, or watching viewership. Like, hey, reminder, we're doing this. I just plop on and hope my mom shows up, and she's like, hi, Mom. Get your Mother's Day card in the mail. But
right.
Good stuff, though, man. And it sounds like, that things are well, and this is another thing that you get to do that really is a passion project, and you enjoy doing it. You're probably learning a bunch of stuff from all these professionals and amateurs as well. So it's got to be fun to do, because if it's not, then like we said, it's like, hey, I'm not going to do it anymore if it's not fun.
Yeah. I went to a conference in Anaheim called VidCon a couple years ago. My work sent me. And all these people are live streaming. They're talking about live streaming and being comfortable on camera. Well, I got that part down.
Yeah, you've done some camera work in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, okay, tell me some of the logistical things, how you make this work and that work, and what mistakes you've made, and I'll try and avoid them. And, so this thing wasn't really, conceived out of the pandemic, although it was born, in pandemic times. Right. But no, grab a new laptop. I bought a DSLR from some guy in Chautauqua, used.
Yeah.
A couple, plop up a couple of lights, make sure your microphone's all right, and let her rip.
Yeah, I totally went super overboard radio geek stuff. I'm like, I need to have, like, this is the night, in 20 years in radio, I never had a mic this nice. And I'm going to finally have a nice microphone, and I'm going to get I have an 8-channel mixer. I don't need an 8-channel mixer. Like, I don't. I'm running like one channel, but I have 7 that look really pretty, and it's way over here. Nobody can even see it. But yeah, I think it's cool to learn. There's so many different nuanceical things that you can learn, and the idea of splitting your audio, and you can send the audio to the podcast automatically. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And the multiple camera angles and different the lighting thing always. I mean, you probably had more knowledge about lighting just because you were in the game of good lighting and bad lighting for a while. I'll sit here and play with my lights for hours. And the internet is, going to conferences, I think always learning more little things you can add to it, and piece by piecing it. I mean, this is a project for me that started over 2 years ago, slowly has built up to what it is. But it's always little things here. Like, how can I add this little anecdotal thing in here? So it's also a good for the brain. Get some of those soundtracks to cartoons I don't ever want to watch again in my life.
Yeah, no, it's kind of cool because it's something you can kind of master but never perfect.
Right.
You just, there's always something a little different and new, features, be it hardware or software, that just keep things kind of interesting. But like we've said, from the start, you've got to be in that mindset that this is a marathon and not a sprint, because if you think you're going to have the instant success, it's just, it doesn't happen that way.
No, it doesn't. And it also keeps us hip. The kids think like, the kids think like, but you have a live stream show? Like, totally hip. I mean, I'm 41. I'm totally hip to what the kids are doing. Kinda, sorta. But it's fun. It's a fun platform to be on, and congratulations on having a project that you love doing and is growing, and hopefully that continues. And I know that you are continuing to reach out to those people and get guests on and keep after it, though, man. I'm super stoked to have you on the show and talk about your passion project, and hopefully someday it becomes this your full-time job. You just talk to bowlers all the time. Yeah,
hey, you never know, but no, it's thank you. I appreciate that. I think your setup is awesome. I've always been impressed with what you do, and I'll tell you the truth. I've had a lot of sources of inspiration for this, and you're absolutely one of them. So keep doing what you're doing too, because that breeds wannabes like me who just want to try and do this half as good.
I'm still in that. I think that's, and thank you first and foremost. But I think there's always that want to be like I'm still in it. You know, I see others that are doing it. I'm like, how in the heck did they do that cool thing? And you know, and then I'll probably add that voice modulator thing that it's like my buddy's like, you have to have the voice modulator, so sometimes you can sound like a robot. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever need that, but I added it now. It just screws with my stuff. But there's always that sense of learning from others and being able to be like, I wonder how he's doing that. Like, and that's why I'm saying like the idea of you posting up on Facebook and having that group and saying there's an event. I mean, I think that's genius stuff. It's all those little things. That's why it's always a constant struggle for. It's not perfection. It'll never be perfection. Right. But it's that constant thing like, oh, that guy's doing that thing. Oh, that's interesting. I'll take that. You know, those two things, and eventually you wind up with something that's semi-functional and buys you a T-shirt once in a while, I guess.
Right.
It's about where mine's at. Gets me like truckloads of Monster. I'm like, damn, dude, like that's.
I saw your picture. That's wow. That's a tower.
That's like I've had Monster has been a partner of mine since I got out of radio and started the podcast, and my buddy Chris Serini. I can't say thanks enough to him for believing in stuff. They gave me my headphones and all the cool stuff here. But they dropped the Monster off, and it's like the 4th delivery I've had like over the course of the last 2 years, and I'm like, I'm getting old or something because I'm like, this is just really taking up a lot of space in my garage. You know, like I have to build a shed, like a monster shed, and make things happen or give the stuff away. Just keep it away from my kid because that's the last thing that child needs.
Well, then you just won't sleep. That's all.
Right, which means I won't sleep, which means my girlfriend won't sleep, which means all hell breaks loose, and nobody wants to see that. We want peace and tranquility. But Bowling with the Fef is the show. Make sure you follow. You got the page out there, Bowling with the Fef on Facebook. The show on YouTube as well. So everybody who's watching along with the stream, make sure you go and follow the Fef. And congratulations, man. I'm happy for you, and keep on doing what you're doing, and keep on doing what I'm doing, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the show sometime soon, man.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. Thanks,
awesome.
Cooper.
Fef, go take care of yourself. Take care of that family tonight. It's Thursday. Do all the things. Awesome, brother. Have a good one. We'll chat soon.
Thanks, you too.
All right, the Fef on the show. Moving back over to, there we are, camera number 3 over here. Love it. Love it. Good stuff. Bowling with the Fef on Facebook and on YouTube, so make sure you go and follow the program. He will appreciate it. I will appreciate it.